Hi, everyone. I'm Karen MacNeil, and this is WineSpeed.com's People to Know, insider interviews with the most important and fascinating people in the wine business. And today we're talking with Carlo Mondavi, a fourth generation wine grower who has dedicated himself to biodynamic and regenerative farming and a hands-off approach to winemaking. He and his brother Dante Mondavi co-founded RAEN Winery in 2013, which specializes in single vineyard Pinot Noir and Chardonnay from the Sonoma Coast. Carlo is also a partner in his family's CONTINUUM estate in Napa Valley. In 2016, Carlo founded the Monarch Challenge, a movement that sought to make clean farming and herbicide-free viticulture economically feasible. In 2018, I've got a big long bio here. In 2018, he co-created the Monarch Tractor, an autonomous, fully electric, smart tractor that's been called the Tesla of tractors. And finally, Carlo is married to Italian winemaker Giovanna Bagnasco. I hope I've said that correctly.
Perfect. You said it perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And together they own SORИ DELLA SORBA winery in Piedmont, Italy. Welcome, Carlo.
Thank you, Karen. An honor to be here. And I thank you for that. That's
Well, that was the short bio. I want to get to your questions though here. So, I first want to ask you, because you have been in the wine business essentially your whole life, do you remember the first glass of wine you ever had? I'm assuming it was as a child.
Yeah, I remember the first impressions of wine. I remember when my family moved from kind of the downtown Napa area up to the Stags Leap district where my grandfather and my uncle, that was a ranch we had. And I remember more being in the vineyards
Mm.
and during harvest everyone coming through and the crews would sing as they picked and like going out there and picking with them and I was like in my, you know, pajamas picking like a, sun up. But yeah, no, the first impressions of wine, I think were around the table with my father, my grandfather, my family, and my grandfather when he was younger. I believe this is something from kind of the Italian heritage. I always think of like when the water maybe wasn't as pure, they would put a little bit of
Mhm.
wine in the water, and so did saw that, tasted that, didn't love that. My grandfather had a taste for it, but then just being able to have a taste of wine
Mm.
when I was probably around 7, 8 years old, small smelling, tasting, talking about the wines. I
Mm.
loved it. It was fun.
Oh, that's great. And we should say that your grandfather is, of course, Robert Mondavi, Bob Mondavi. In Napa here, I hate to tell you this, but in Napa we do night harvesting, so you can still wear your jammies if you
Yeah.
want to go picking at
Hey,
night.
I love it. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
would pick really in the middle of the night
yeah,
versus sun up. So it's a little bit harder to wake up at 2, 3 in the morning than it is kind of when the sun's hitting you and
yeah,
the vines look beautiful. And but I actually really love and enjoy night harvesting. It's
yeah.
quite fun. Yeah.
So, Rain, that you do, the winery with your brother Dante, focuses on Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. Why Pinot Noir? Why did you want to make it?
It's my grandfather and my father, actually, really my father, kind of embedded this deep love of Pinot Noir. My father, he was called the Prince of Pinot Noir, something like this. He and still to this day, everything at Continuum is very Burgundian inspired, gentler handling of the vineyards, gentler
Mm.
handling of the wines. Um, and I grew up with this love of Pinot Noir. And at the time, my family, when I was growing up, we had a Pinot Noir division. My father was going to Burgundy all the time, was friends with Gerard Potel, who was the whole cluster kind of leader of great wines at the time, the generation before Enclave de Fleuve and Malépis Loire and Aubert d'Evelyn and Jacques Cess. He was the guy that informed maybe more than Loire and Jacques Cess, and because he was a whole cluster.
Yeah.
And he was also friends with Henri Jaillet, who was the opposite, the destemmed, and both fabulous, fabulous winemakers. And Gerard Potel was Le Pousse d'Or until '98, and just iconic, iconic wines. And he had this love of Pinot Noir, and he kind of really, I think, put that into my family deeply. Just we love to taste, we love the aromatics, we love and we love visiting Burgundy. And then when we sold Robert Mondavi in 2004, my father really said, "How do we take everything that we've done at Robert Mondavi and take it to the next level?" So one wine, one site at the very highest level, pure focus with continuum, laser focus. And so we stopped making anything but
That one.
Continuum, the estate wine.
Yeah.
And I'd gone to college in France, fallen in love with Burgundy, worked in Burgundy. So it just kept getting more and more in love. And to be honest, I just deeply love the true Sonoma Coast, and I love the Pinot Noirs that are coming from there. And so after a long bit, I was finally able to go off on my own with my brother and begin RAEN.
I have to tell you this story because as a young journalist, this is now probably 1979, I drive up to Napa. And this was before there was sort of wine tourism in Napa, except for it was harvest. I drove into Mondavi. There's your grandfather, Bob. And I say, I'm a journalist. I mean, I was a journalist of no one knew, right? I mean, I was such a beginner.
But that probably made its day, by the way, because he's like, my goodness, like someone's writing about why this was such an this was a big deal, you know?
Yeah, and Mondavi made Pinot Noir at that time from Carneros.
Yeah.
And he said to me, now, young lady, I want to tell you one thing. I said, yes, Mr. Mondavi. He said, I want you to write this down. Pinot Noir is not supposed to knock your socks off. It's supposed to slip them off slowly.
Yeah.
That was Bob Mondavi, right?
Oh my gosh.
Can you just hear him saying that?
I could picture him. He had great like analogies and metaphors for describing wines, and yeah, I could picture him saying that exact phrases.
What does RAEN mean, by the way?
RAEN actually comes from a story that my father told my brothers and sisters and I when we were little. We were quite young, and I remember it hit me like so hard because really the cellar at Robert Mondavi was a playground for us. But the cellar at Robert Mondavi had a very sophisticated laboratory. And so you big tanks, you know, forklifts, a lot of activity. And then you go into this laboratory with everyone with lab coats and all the different beakers and all the different equipment doing different lab analysis. And I remember thinking how technical winemaking was, and that winemaking was really like closer to maybe like space exploration, like NASA, and it's really scientific. And my father told us a story of rain becoming wine. And he said that, you know, so it's a unique spelling,
Yes.
but he would say, you guys realize wine's the most natural beverage you can have, that the alchemy or miracle of water becoming wine happens every year in the vineyards. And he told us a story of it raining in the fields, filtering through the rocks, the vine's drinking, the sun sweetening it. And then on the outside of the grape, there's that beautiful wax that collects the flora, and all of the resin from the flowers, grasses, the trees all stick to that and create the bloom. And within the bloom, there's over 50,000 individual yeast cells. And so, you know, and he literally brought it to like, I think the bees would come and bite the grape open, or a bird under the hot summer sun would peck it open when it's ripe, and the juice would mix with the skin sugar plus CCS alcohol right there, rain becomes wine. And I was just like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, it's that natural. And so when Dante and I began this, we really wanted, and something my grandfather did back at Robert Mondavi was he really wanted to make wines of purity and elegance. And that's why at the time we didn't understand microbiology at the level we do now. So he pioneered stainless steel from the milk industry, new barrels. So we didn't inherit any because we didn't know how to clean our barrels. So you'd have a very blank canvas with, and it, you know, now we know how to clean our barrels well. So we can even get closer to the vineyard by having very clean used barrels. So there's less bites from the barrel. So no, the whole journey of kind of the winemaking getting closer to the vineyards. And so when Dante and I began this, we wanted a name that would symbolize our deep connection to the land and to the site. And so this unique spelling RAEN stands for our dedication to research in agriculture and ecology naturally. So all native fermentations. We don't
Very
have
cool.
Yeah, we don't find filters. It's very pure, and then very. If we do our job right in the vineyards, we really don't need to do much in the cellar, to be honest. It's quite a beautiful process and natural.
Well, yeah, you know, you do have this hands-off approach, and you are really, as you just expressed, so connected to nature. And yet, Monarch Tractor, you know, very sophisticated, sophisticated technology. So do you have to, how do you reconcile technology on the one hand and do nothingness on the other hand?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be so easy, honestly. I thought, oh, we're just going to, you know, all we have to do is make an electric driver optional tractor. That's the missing link to getting away from herbicides, making organic farming the new conventional, and all the beautiful elements of permaculture and biodynamics and regenerative farming so economically feasible for any farmer. And man, it's a lot more difficult. But thankfully, I have three brilliant co-founders from Silicon Valley that are brilliant engineers, and I think that technology plays a major role in us being able to feed our planet in a very sustainable way. Because right now, when you look at farming, it's baffling. It uses that 70% of our freshwater resources. It encompasses 50% of our inhabitable land. We spray 9 billion pounds of pesticides and 100 million tons of fertilizer, and it represents 33% of our planet's carbon footprint. So it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
And all of this has happened in a very short order. So how can we get rid of the 9 billion pounds, 5 billion pounds of herbicides? Well, if you mow, it's 100% reduction. So how can you make mowing economically superior to herbicides? How can you, we're, like 95% inefficient when we spray fungicides and insecticides. Most of that goes off to the ether. 5% typically hits the target. How can we become more, more precise there to bring from 5% even to 50%? That's a huge reduction of the, remaining 4 billion pounds of pesticides. And on the fertilizer side, there's just, I think that it's smarts and it's changing how we farm. But all of these things are, and I have to say also, Karen, that of those pesticides and of the fertilizers, they're all derived from the fossil fuel industry.
Yeah.
And so as that winds down and clean tech and renewable energy winds up, they're going to become increasingly expensive. So first off, they're not great for the planet. Soon they're going to become cost prohibitive. So how do we get to a place where we can farm and have, and at scale, have beautiful ecosystems that don't hurt Mother Earth, but really encourage Mother Earth and help Mother Earth and work in unison with Mother Earth instead of against. So it's been this journey that I didn't plan to be on. I'm doing this all for wine. I love wine. I want my kids, which I don't have children yet, but I want, and I do have nieces. I want them to be able to farm with the same love and same biodiversity and same life that I've been blessed to enjoy. So it's really kind of how do we plan for the future? And I'm really excited about that. Monarch will unlock a huge opening for us to step through. And so it's very exciting. Technology plays a major role in all of these things.
In a way, it has to, right? Yeah. Well, speaking of the future, you've read all of the reports lately too about data suggesting that certain younger cohorts, millennials and younger people, are not drinking wine, right? Wine consumption is down in those cohorts. What do you think? What can you do about that? Is there something you can do?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I'm really loving is that you can go anywhere almost in the United States and now really in the world and find incredible food. Our ability, the chefs, are moving from, less heavy sauces and more about talking about the ingredients. We're disconnected from where our food comes from right now. I think we know who delivers our food, we know who prepares our food, but we don't know how it's farmed. And so I think that um, the we've never had better food and we've never had better wine than we have today through you know our knowledge, technology, our desire. And I do think that the younger generations, are going to continue to love wine and can this because it is, my grandfather talked about the immense health benefits of wine in moderation. And I still think, I don't sit down and open a bottle and just drink it. I always have wine with food. And there's this really beautiful balance on how great wine can elevate the meal and great food can elevate the wine. And they play this synergistic thing. And I really just, there's certain meals I can't have without wine. I just couldn't possibly think of
Yeah.
having. So I think that it's on the numbers. I think that it's a lot of it is just about the introduction. Maybe they haven't been able to have that great experience of food and wine, but I think it's these are trends that I think are just going to be what they are. But I think they'll continue to go up when um, or maybe moderate balance, but there'll always be a place for great food and great wine on this planet, and I think it'll always be coveted the same way it is now. I mean, I just intuitively I couldn't picture my life without wine, and I just don't see how someone else, if they were introduced to the same table that I've been able to, eat and drink from, how they wouldn't just love it. So it's probably um, maybe a trend of sorts. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So,
No,
but
but you're
anyway,
right. Food is an introduction to wine, and And both are flavor, right? Food is solid flavor, wine is liquid flavor. Once you care about flavor, you gotta sort of love them both. Let me ask you this. I mean, you come obviously from a famous family. What has that meant to you in defining your own path? I mean, I'm sure it's been helpful in some ways, and maybe not in others.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up right here in St. Helena, and among many wine families and incredible people, and I've never really felt this feeling of my family being known to the extent that we are through wine. I guess like when I think about for me, my grandfather's biggest challenge was to understand the science of winemaking better. We didn't understand microbiology at the level that we do now. So he dedicated his life to understanding what is Brettanomyces, what is malolactic fermentation, how can we make better wines, how can we have cleaner cellars, and he really was driven to understand more so that he could perfect that. And I think that during that time, there was this kind of green revolution, which is really the chemical revolution, which is also dedicated to the sciences, and it kind of misled the agricultural communities through this whole thing with the Monarch Challenge, trying to get rid of herbicides and all of these things that we've been weaning away from the natural realm of farming and more into this kind of chemical realm. And I think that my generation, and I'm so blessed and fortunate that globally, when you talk to the winemakers of Italy, where my wife farms, and her sister are organic farmers and practicing permaculture and regenerative agriculture as well. And when you talk to friends in Burgundy, everyone cares now. And so I think our generation's biggest challenge is to pivot away from that era of farming and into and the beautiful thing about the wine business is I think that we get to help lead in this realm because we don't talk about how tomatoes are farmed per se. There are fine dining restaurants that connect up every single ingredient, but as a whole, we don't talk about how our lettuces are, our fruits and vegetables are farmed, but we do in wine. And so in winemaking, we can really fine tune that. And I think that is going to be the next layer is how are our fruits and vegetables farmed? But I'm excited that in the wine business, the challenge I think that I've taken on personally to try to elevate what we're doing is to try to find a more natural realm that's scalable for everybody. And so yeah, I think again here I feel like everyone's incredibly um, I'm fans, I should say, of all my fellow neighbors that make beautiful wines, and so I like the idea that we're all in this kind of like boat together to navigate these waters, and the wine business is the leading edge of, or the leading tip of the spear on this revolution that's happening in agriculture, which is very exciting.
Totally exciting. Uh, and lastly, Carlo, tell us something that most people would be surprised to learn about you.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I feel like the farming winemaking side now with Monarch, my passion of agriculture might be a bit more known. For a little while, I don't think people knew how obsessed with agriculture and farming I am. But I think I've been focusing, trying to, because of my life's gotten to become quite busy. And I'm very proud and I love everything I'm doing, but trying to get out into nature more, snowboarding and surfing are some of my passions. Just um, I grew up, in this beautiful area out on the Sonoma Coast surfing and up in Tahoe snowboarding. But just the other side, I love sports and fun. Maybe might be something people don't know about me. I don't know. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you, Carlo. And for the complete interview with Carlo Mondavi, go to wine.com's, go to winespeed.com's People to Know